Hello friends, we have already learnt about the types of resources as they are classified and the issues that relate to the development of resources. Well, today we will be trying to learn more about resources. As we have learnt that resource planning is essential for sustainable development. What is planning? Well, planning is the widely accepted strategy for the judicious use of resources. Children, can you relate with the reasons for the judicious use of resources? Also, why do you think that planning is important in a country like India? Why should we plan to use our resources? Well, our country, India, has enormous diversity in availability of resources. Different types of resources are found in different regions. Well, there are regions which are rich in certain types of resources, but are deficient in some other resources. Recall you have studied about various physiographic regions of India. The Chota Nagpur Plateau is a storehouse of minerals. The northern plains with rich alluvial soil cover, abundant water, resources and conducive climatic conditions are granaries of the country. The mountains in the north, the Himalayas, are major source of water and forest wealth. Coastal regions and the islands provide sites for fisheries and port facilities. States like Rajasthan and Gujarat are rich in solar and wind energy. We have already learnt about the potential of these resources in these states. Arunachal Pradesh is endowed with abundant water resources. As resources are diverse in their availability, this is why balanced resource planning at various levels, national, regional and local level, is essential. Students, what are the resources found in your state? And are you aware of those resources that are important but probably deficient in your state? As we have learnt about the need for resource planning, what is resource planning? Resource planning is a complex process involving 3 stages. The first stage is identification of resources in the regions of the country. It involves surveying, mapping them, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Estimation and measurement of the resources is essential element of the first stage. Stage 2 involves evolving a planning structure with appropriate technology as how to develop these resources. And yes, certainly, this calls for the need for skill and institutional setup. Do you know why? For implementing resource planning and the various developmental plans. Stage 3 involves matching the resource development plans with overall national development plans. Are you aware that post-independence, our country has made coordinated, concerted efforts for achieving the goals of resource development since the first 5-year plans have been implemented. Students, do you think is the availability of resources a prerequisite, essential for development of any region? Well, the mere availability of resources in the absence of appropriate technological and institutional changes may hinder the development. A resource-rich region may be economically backward, but there are some resource-poor regions that are economically developed. Let us try to identify such regions and think over the reasons for such situation. Do you know that the rich resources attracted foreign invaders to colonize India? The technological superiority of the colonial countries like the Dutch, the Portuguese, the French, and the British gave them the advantage to exploit these resources and strengthen their hold over the colonies. Thus, it is clear that resources can contribute to development only when they are accompanied by appropriate technological and institutional changes. So, whether development in general or resource development in particular does not involve availability of resources, but also the technology, the quality of human resources, and the historical perspectives of the people. We have learnt about the indiscriminate use of resources by human beings and the global impact. This has created the condition for us to identify that we have to conserve our resources. Students, you all are using resources. And do you realize why we need to use them judiciously? Can you identify the reason for the need of resource conservation? We all know resources are vital for our survival, essential for any developmental activity too. Thus, there is an irrational consumption and overutilization of resources. This trend of consumption of resources has led to serious problems like rapid depletion of resources, unequal access to resources, and global ecological concerns too. This is the reason that conservation of resources has been the key issue of global concern for leaders and thinkers across the world. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, emphasized on conservation of resources. According to Gandhiji, the greedy and selfish individuals and the exploitative nature of technology were the root cause of the resource depletion at the global level. He believed in production by masses and was against mass production. Children, at the international level, the Club of Rome advocated resource conservation for the first time in a more systematic way in the year 1968. In the year 1974, Gandhiji's philosophy was once again represented by a noted British economist, E.W. Schumacher, in his book, Small is Beautiful. The Brundtland Commission report in the year 1987 that introduced sustainable development and also advocated it as a means of resource conservation. Do you know it was later published in a book entitled Our common future. You're familiar and aware about the significance of the seminal contribution of the Rio Earth Summit in the year 1992, which was held in Brazil, is known for its seminal contribution as it aimed for achieving sustainable development in the 21st century. Dear students, I would also ask a question to each one of you, that in what different ways do you contribute towards conservation of resources? Do you all practice, reduce, reuse, and recycle? Do you rethink in your day-to-day life to conserve the resources? Dear children, I hope that you have learnt a valuable lesson throughout the interesting sessions we have had so far, and you promise and make a promise and take a promise to conserve our resources to make our planet a better place to live. In our next class, we will be throwing light on the topic that subsequently continues as another resource, a prime resource, the land resource, the soil resource. And also keep thinking that why the land and the soil are such important resources to us.